Perfect. All right, let's get started. So yes, we are the MacEwan Trade Mission. U Laval here is popped up because we are in collaboration with Laval University over in Quebec. So like Nancy mentioned, I'm Elise and I will let
I'm
Fatima.
Fatima, Shoaib.
There you are. And thank you for joining us today. I will let you guys know a little bit more about the program here. So, the Trade Mission Program, we are a nonprofit organization and we're really a business development program here. So, we provide really customized and competitively priced internationalization and nationalization representation services. So, this year we have a focus on representing Alberta and BC companies in their goals to expand out east, specifically in Quebec. So, that's where that Laval piece comes in. So with this specific trade mission this year, we do have more of that nationalization focus, helping those Western companies head out east. So it's a very tailor-made service here. So anything that company is looking to expand, whatever that objective is, we look to customize what we can do for them and help them kind of take those first steps towards expansion out east. So a little bit more history on the trade mission itself. So we've been doing this for the past about 28 years, and throughout that time, we've actually represented over 700 companies, and quite a few of those, about 115, actually return year after year, wanting to develop other areas of the business. So we've got a pretty good retention rate there, which is excellent. Over that time, we've also completed over 27 missions and traveled to over 24 countries. So as exciting as that is, I think it's really great that this year we're focusing inside Canada and keeping it domestic. I think that that's pretty cool. And throughout all of these missions as well, we've been able to build a pretty robust community and network of over 900 alumni that whether that be officers, coordinators, other companies within the network as well. And that is something that is quite nice as a resource for any of the companies that we're working with to be able to access to. So they've got quite a large network as well. Further on, our management team that helps support those like Fatima and myself, we have Antoine, who's our general manager over in Quebec. He helps oversee some of the training and as well as just the general direction of the program. And then we also have Catherine. She's our head of development and marketing. So she has taken on quite a large role within our specific Canada mission this year. And so she's in pretty much everyday direct contact with the coordinators and with us officers here in Alberta and BC. So looking at a timeline of how the trade mission has worked out, back in 1997 was when we had 15 business administration students preparing for that first trade mission in Argentina. So exciting this year. Our group for this Alberta to Quebec mission, we've got 12 development officers like Fatima, and we are all business students ourselves as well. So most of us in our third and fourth year in commerce, whether that be we've got a large group at MacEwan itself. We do have a couple officers representing in Calgary too. So we do have some people closer to if you guys are joining from Calgary, studying at U of C, as well as we do have a representative in Nanaimo at Vancouver Island University. So very similar. We've got a smaller team here this year, which is really great. 2021, we did our first delegation departing for a Canadian destination. So similar to what we did here with a focus on Toronto. And in 2022, we had another really awesome international mission there going to Morocco. And that was our first time there as well. And at present, it's been over 700 client companies presented. So really good traction there. And here's a really fun look at a map of some places that we've represented. You can see we've pretty much been all over, which is really exciting. And so I'm excited to do a little bit more here in Quebec this year. So as far as the actual services that we offer and that we can provide to any of those clients that are ready for some representation. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but just some of the more popular ones that we can offer. We help with import and export, partnering and client acquisition. So, if somebody's looking to find those collaborators. That's something that we can definitely help to facilitate. Employer brand promotion as well. We do market studies too. So that's a really good one for some companies that perhaps they're thinking 2025 is not necessarily my year. I don't think that I can make that move right now, but it definitely is something that I want to do. Doing that market study is really great because it's for that kind of 2, 3 years out preparation for expansion. So you get your officer to really be on the ground in Quebec. Who are your competitors? What does the market look like? And I think there's such value in actually being there, literally being able to like take photos and do things that just you can't do through a Google and through whatever. It's just different to be able to have that in person contact there. And so these are just a few of them. And like I said before, if there's any other needs, we always let the companies know. Please let us know. We want to know how we can customize this for you. So when it comes to what the actual mission looks like, we start here with the signature of the contract and definition of desired services. So at that point, what we have right now in our current stage is we have our 12 officers. Right now, they're qualifying, targeting, prospecting different companies. And they're looking to make sure, are they, first of all, is expanding to Quebec something that they want to do? Is going out east something that they want to do? Perhaps it's, well, we want to eventually get to Europe. Okay, well, Quebec can be your first start, right? As far as breaking through maybe some cultural barriers, it's a proving ground for something like that, right? So they're first finding that company, and then they'll sign together, signing that kind of collaboration agreement and really fleshing out what I call kind of like that scope of work. So what are those desired services going to be? If, for example, we had above, if you're looking for suppliers or distributors, then that's going to be okay. That's what we're going to work on together. I want you to really flesh out for me what does expansion to Quebec look like for you, and how can we make this happen? So that's what that definition of desired services looks like. Then from that point on, that company has that officer assigned to them. It's a one for one. And so from that point on, it begins with the familiarization process. So we really want to make sure that all officers are really understanding the ins and outs of that company so that they can best represent them when they do realize that trade mission here in the spring. So really understanding not only those laid out goals, but also products and services, and just being able to understand everything that they can. Um, at the same time that this is happening, the officers are continuing all of their training. So they receive support not only from MacEwan University, but also from the trade mission management team as well through Quebec, who have had quite a bit of experience in running these missions as well. So they've got a good team behind them, and receive support from coordinators like myself and the rest of management throughout as well. So it's never just the officer, it's very much a teamwork situation. Before they leave for the mission, they provide the company that they're working with a preliminary market study. So even if the market study isn't that overall mandate that the company is seeking, it's kind of nice because no matter what the objective is, every company gets like a bonus market study essentially on a little bit of a smaller scale. And so that's just proving that the grounds in Quebec are going to be ready for them. So, who are those distributors, for example, that you're going to be talking to? What is your meeting agenda? What are you going to be talking about? And kind of all of those things. And also just laying out if you're, for example, you're in the agri-food sector, who are your competitors? Who's currently operating in the space? Giving some numbers, giving some stats, just to kind of, again, prove some feasibility there and give the company just a little bit more insight. So that goes along with the preparation of the trade mission. And then the fun part, we actually execute the mission this year. This date is a few days off. We just had a couple of changes. It'll actually be from May 2nd to May 16th for 2025. And so that's 2 weeks. We do a week in Montreal and a week in Quebec City. And for that time, all the officers are, it's a full work week. They're making meetings. And the idea there is to really close the deal, right? So negotiations have been started before they left as part of the preparation for the trade mission. They've been calling those Quebec partners that they've been targeting. And so the idea here is to really wrap things up and sign off on all those objectives that had been set out before the mission. And so, with the hopes that all of that happens, and it almost always does, the officer will then draft a final report to present to the company as well as just a final deliverable, wrapping up everything that occurred during the mission. Their meeting minutes, finalization of here's the deals that we did, and everything like that, so that the company has that comprehensive report to have for themselves, to share for future hires, everything like that. So um, it's a nice kind of all throughout, and the idea is to kind of always have constant communication between the company and between the officers. So updating each other on kind of any new moves, anything like that. Um, yeah. So if we move on to just some other benefits that the client companies can receive as well, is that they do actually get access to some of the training courses that the officers receive in preparation for the trade mission. So we have a few recurring conferences every year that could be of interest. So including, some priority sectors in Canada, economic sectors in Quebec, internationalization strategies. So again, even if we're starting here in Canada, we have a lot of companies where their dreams continue to get bigger and bigger. So whether that's stepping into the States, which we know Quebec is pretty nicely located for that, or if it's heading into Europe or elsewhere, we also have kind of a next step focus on that too, to make sure that they can easily step into that area as well. Import and export logistics, intellectual property and legal aspects. We work with a lot of tech firms as well, so a lot of those ones find that to be pretty helpful. And then as well as some free trade agreements and international trade. I know that's something that can always be of interest too. And this is a question that we get a lot, so I wanted to dedicate a full side to it. Do you need to speak French? No. Our officers, while they may know a little bit of French, there is no requirement to be fully bilingual. The meetings that they make and the companies that they speak to in Quebec as part of the network that we have helped build and that they continue to build themselves, they are able to speak in English. So though Quebec is a bilingual province, English does still play a significant role in business. So not to worry there. There's definitely room for success in both languages. And there is still a very strong English speaking community, which we may not think there is, but there definitely is, and especially in industries such as tech finance and other international trade, which would make sense. So yes, there is no need to yourself be bilingual. And just as another reminder too, for the actual trade mission itself, it's not required for the companies to go to Quebec for those 2 weeks. It's really the officer that represents them. We have had in the past, if someone from the business development side or from the sales side wants to come in a company, they can, but it is not a requirement for the company themselves to go. The idea is to have this be a really kind of outsourced service for them, so that they can keep spending time at home working on all the other important parts of business, and know that this expansion objective is being well taken care of. So just another point there on time and commitment investment. So I did link here a video that just kind of, it's just a quick little 2-minute video that goes through just some highlights of last year's mission. So last year we did a similar mission from Alberta to Quebec, and we have a couple of the officers speak on their experience there, talk about a little bit of their time prepping, what the actual mission looked like. It's very beautifully filmed. I will provide the link to Nancy afterwards, so that you guys can watch it on your own time. But that's a really good one to check out as well. So I am going to let Fatima speak a little bit more about some of the opportunities that we have in Quebec.
All right, thank you, Elise. Yeah, let's talk about some opportunities in Quebec, some fun business facts, and why you should consider Quebec. So first of all, Quebec is the second largest consumer market in Canada, with Quebec City being Canada's second, soon to be first most productive major metropolitan area. And it's the second largest importer and the third largest exporter among Canadian provinces. Also, Montreal is Canada's second largest business hub. Yeah, it's a lot of firsts and seconds and third largest, but because that's what Quebec is. And also, access to bigger markets become so much easier. Um, Access to Ontario and the US markets because of Quebec's strategic location. So if you do business there, it becomes a lot more easier to go into the US markets, as well as gateway to Europe, because of obviously French language, historical and cultural links. You do get a taste of a little bit if you were to expand your business in Europe, how that would look like. Quebec and Montreal, especially, are railway, port, and air freight hubs. So, great transport system to access all those large markets. It's an innovation-focused and entrepreneurial ecosystem, third sector. Quebec has, I believe, 18 universities, which brings to a second, sorry, that point that it has a robust academic and research institute. So it's highly, highly focused on innovation and research, with all these universities and having a lot of research centers. And reliable, clean, and renewable energy. Quebec has 99% renewable energy, and it offers Alberta and BC companies a sustainable and cost-effective foundation for growth, and eco-conscious market. And more incentives include lowest operational costs, lowest energy costs, generous tax incentives with 26.6 corporate tax rate, which is lower than big markets like New York or LA, and the Canadian provinces' tax rate vary from 23 to 31%. Yeah, and it has a lot of sectors, but mainly life sciences, aerospace, transport, aluminum, manufacturing, AI, biotech, agri-food, so many.
Yeah, it's there's quite a few sectors of excellence, and I mean, those are some of the ones that we have really focused on in the past. But it's always a case by case basis, and we're always open to hearing, what is your goal, and if there's any way that we can help, that's definitely something that we're open to. So thank you, Fatima, for taking us through that. That was excellent. So I just wanted to highlight a few of those sectors specifically. So especially for manufacturing. Nearly 90% of the province's total exports come from this sector in Quebec, and they're quite high contributors of its GDP as well. And almost 1,400 manufacturing companies in Quebec. So, excellent, excellent roots there. In sector as well, Fatima had mentioned they're quite green as well, and they are leading the hydroelectric production area. So that's wonderful to see. And I know that we've definitely been talking to a few Alberta and BC companies that are ready to make the switch too. So being able to have that kind of support from government as well is really great to see. And agri-food too is quite a popular one, and one that companies that reach out to us quite a bit as well. 66% of our agricultural production is coming from Quebec, compared to the rest of Canada at only 35%. So they're quite main players in that area as well. And again, there's there's a large labor force there too. Almost 43,000 farmers as well. So I go through a couple of our testimonials here. Nancy will be sharing the presentation with you guys as well, as she had mentioned. So more time to kind of go through these as well. But this was specifically from our Toronto one not too long ago. So quite a similar trade mission as the one that we are putting on this year, and this was with MedFar Clinical Solutions. So a lot of med tech companies that kind of fall into that life science category as well. They were quite pleased, and they actually ended up hiring six of the six graduates who were able to make a pretty positive impact on their organization. So that was something I wanted to mention as well. Is that is definitely a possibility is for hiring. We've had a lot of the client companies be really impressed with the work of the officer, and I mean, you've essentially been able to spend that time with them, training them. They know your company pretty well already, so it seems to be a pretty seamless transition. And for those that are interested, that has always been a really nice partnership to make there. So if that is something that companies are ever interested in and are ready to expand, and especially have somebody kind of in that development role or whatever else it may be, that's always a really nice piece to share as well with the community that you guys bring this to afterwards. Just a couple there as well. Um, yeah, and quite a few ended up recommending us as well, which is nice. And here's just a nice visual of a few of the companies that we represented. It's pretty hard to fit 700 onto one slide, so we did our best just to do a few here. And they're separated into a few of those excellent sectors that Fatima had mentioned as well. So I had also mentioned before kind of the connection with Laval. So they're definitely a major partner in the trade mission. So, they're not only providing their expertise with helping with training and onboarding of the officers, but also resources. I mean, they have helped build that giant network that the officers have access to once we start working in Quebec. And so that's really great for them to have as well, and as well as just general support in executing their various mandates and objectives. So we're really lucky to have them on our side, as well as we've got help from a couple other big names here. So again, I'll leave that to you guys to read through. And then as far as for investment as well, so um, for monetary, it's 6,500, and that works out to be about 120 hours from the officer, about like 2 hours a week. So it's pretty ongoing, which is really nice. And as I had mentioned before, it's really an outsourced opportunity, so that frees up business owner, entrepreneur time to focus on the other areas of the business as well. And even those that already do have a development team, it's nice to maybe have someone added in that can have that main that main focus on Quebec. While others are working on current projects and things like that. So that's what that works out to be as well. And then, yes, I would love now at this point that concludes everything that we had to share with you today as far as the presentation. But I would love if there were any questions. I would love to answer those. And yeah, maybe we can go from there.
We do have a couple of questions in the chat.
Excellent.
One from Eleanor is, you mentioned the 700 businesses that are represented. How many of those actually secured deals in their community of focus?
Yes. So once they were actually on the trade mission.
I believe is that what you're referring to, Eleanor? I think that's probably what it is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, excellent. No, great question. Yes. Yeah, all of them. So everyone, there's probably, I would say, um, there's an odd time where maybe it's not exactly a deal signed, but at least that partnership has been formed. But it's a very high rate of because sometimes the companies end up having multiple things that they want dealt with, and so the odds of at least one or two of those being signed are very high, and that is often exactly what happens. And so a lot of the companies walk away happy with. Whether, like I said, they now have that deal signed with that distributor, or now they are at least in contact with a new research institute because they work in med tech, and they have not just a contact but next steps ready to go. Like they now are going to be meeting with them within the next couple months, and they have things planned. And so there's always a step forward that occurs. Nobody's ever left high and dry. But that helps answer the question.
And that kind of leads to the next question as well. How do you measure success with these missions? Like, what are the KPIs?
So that's always laid out pretty directly. If I go back to that timeline, that's really laid out in the definition of the desired services. So that would be part of a conversation between the officer and the company. So they would work together to say, this here is what we want to achieve, and what is that actually going to look like. So exactly, setting out those KPIs would be important, because that not only guides the officer, but that also helps ensure that everybody's on track. And throughout kind of the preparation for the mission and the familiarization, it's not like we wait to do everything at the trade mission. Things are starting and blooming before then, and so there's still opportunity to make sure that those KPIs are being um, are being hit before, so it doesn't have to be everything all at once in the past 2 weeks. Like, we want to make sure that the companies are receiving value throughout, and that's where that kind of two-way communication piece really comes in there too. So basically, to sum it up, that the KPIs and the measurement of success would be exactly what the company wants it to look like, and then the officer, it's on them to follow through with that.
Just wanted to add in it that we do have a section in the contract where we put exactly, the client puts in the objectives that it wants us to achieve, and then we sign it there. So it's like defined by the client itself, the KPIs, and then we take it forward.
Hmm. Exactly.
And if people on this webinar wanted to get involved, you have your contact information there. What are the next steps then? Just contact you and you'll set something up for them, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a couple options. Probably the most direct would, yes, be to email or phone either Fatima or myself. And then we would, I mean, I'm sure in the message you would just mention, hey, I was at the Lunch and Learn. I'm interested. I would like to know more. And then from that point, we could carry on. Likely, what would happen then is we would set up like a discovery meeting. So that would be with either two officers or with a coordinator and an officer, and that would just be to kind of understand um, just, what would expansion really look like for you. This can be, I don't want to say informal is not necessarily the term, but it wouldn't be like a meeting to sign the contract necessarily. It could just be, let's familiarize yourself, for the officers that aren't here, right? And for those that haven't met the companies, that's what that would look like. And then from that point, if it's deemed to be a fit, and what we are ready to provide is what they're looking for in the near future, then we would move forth with setting up that time to go over the contract. I mean, that can be done in that first meeting as well, just to kind of see. And then that officer is assigned to that company, and you guys would be able to work out those KPIs, work out, when does it work for you to um, have the officer in. I mean, it's a pretty low time commitment for the companies. That's the idea. We don't want this to be another added um, thing that just takes up more time. It's supposed to be a helpful resource, and so it can be pretty flexible in what that looks like. If it's a virtual meeting with the officer every 2 weeks, if it's it can be laid out exactly how the company wants. So easiest thing, just email either of us, or I will provide Nancy with our website as well, specifically to the business page. And there's a link there that just says interested, let us know, and you can provide company information, and it'll be sent to those of us on the back end, and we will distribute as they come in.
And here's another important question. What stage of growth do the companies need to be in to be considered for the program?
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, we've been able to represent a pretty wide range. I mean, if again, those at the smaller size, they're I mean, probably not pre-revenue, but I mean, it's all dependent. I mean, if they are willing and able for the investment piece, I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge. If they are pre-revenue, is sometimes it can be difficult to to pay. But again, if they have the means and the desire, probably for them it would look like doing more of that market study. So you're ready to just see what that landscape would look like for you out east, and then all the way to somebody a little bit larger. I mean, if you're already international and you've already got presence all around the world, there's probably not much that we can do for you yet, or there's not much that we can do for you at all. So those that are a little bit smaller, but maybe more of those kind of like mid-size. Typically, if they already have a little bit of expansion outside of the current market. So, for example, if they're an Alberta company that's they're in Edmonton or Calgary, and maybe they've already got a couple things going on in BC, or maybe even Saskatchewan, something like that. That's always a really good sign. Then we can kind of play on, okay, what did that expansion model look like for you, and how can we adapt and make that work for something a little bit bigger and a little bit farther. So yeah, all very dependent, and like I said, it's nice to have that kind of first meeting and assess if it's a fit. And we really try to make it work. If you want to be out in Quebec, we want to be able to help you do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
and sorry, just to add to that, that I am having meeting with a company that is pre-revenue, and they have an expansion goal for 2025, and so one of their goals for this is a market study. They want to know what the landscape in Quebec looks like for them. So in a year, if they were to expand, how will that look like? What are the people they need to contact? What are the steps they need to take? So that is one example of like pre-revenue.
Yeah, exactly that. Versus those who are ready to go and they need we need a warehouse now. We need it out east. So a pretty good range there.
are there any more questions? I don't see any, so I guess we'll end it here.
Excellent.
Fatima, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, thank you so much for spending half an hour with us over your lunch break. And watch your inbox. You'll be receiving this information very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.